New videos releasing every week. Make sure to subscribe.
I have to end this. This is getting too long. Guys, I am in absolute disbelief. I didn't expect this.
I just legitimately, driving home from the screening, this was the thing in my head. And this is just real. The Rise of Skywalker is my least favorite of the 9 core saga films.
The Rise of Skywalker is a bad movie, and not endearingly bad, but more just bad in its pure, obligatory, cynical nature.
There were so many times in this film I was like, what? What? Wait, what? Wait, what? No! That's stupid! Oh my God.
A number of times the audience laughed at the movie in its sloppy desperation to be what was once unanimously loved. It's just trying way too hard.
Oh yeah, I fucking love Star Wars! Fucking Star Wars!
What happened to Star Wars? What happened? Where are we? What weird alternate dimension am I in? There's not a lot I liked in this movie, to be honest with you.
It was alright, I guess. Okay, so just to start off with this review, I'm gonna recap the last 2 movies, The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, just so you can hear my thoughts on them before getting into The Rise of Skywalker. So The Force Awakens to me is a pretty solid action movie. The great thing about it to me is that it's very fast paced and there's never any boring moments. The characters that are introduced are likable, some of which are very interesting and some of which are not. So The Last Jedi is a very divisive movie obviously, but to me I really enjoy it. I've seen it twice in the past week leading up to seeing The Rise of Skywalker. Initially I hated it coming out of the cinema, but now I see it as a very entertaining character driven movie, and maybe it's just because I like the themes and ideas, but right now it's one of my favorite Star Wars movies and I get a lot of enjoyment out of watching it. Getting into Rise of Skywalker, I was very excited about watching this movie. I understood that it was directed by J.J. Abrams and that likely it wouldn't be really good. What I expected was a pretty good action movie like Force Awakens. I'm gonna break down this into the good and the bad, specifically into the parts of the movie that stood out to me or I had issues with, just so this is more of a personal review. Like, I'm not gonna talk about the music for instance, because everyone thinks that's great. Spoiler alert for the whole movie. So the good. I like that the first 2/3 of the movie focus solely on the 3 main heroes, Rey, Poe and Finn. We haven't seen much of them all 3 together in the last 2 movies at all. Poe and Rey met each other for the first time at the end of The Last Jedi, and it was actually quite surprising to me that they had such good chemistry as a group. Like, there's no character arcs in this movie really. I just liked the interactions between the 3 characters and the side characters that came into that. As I said with The Force Awakens, they are all very likable actors and the characters they portray are also very likable. Another thing I liked about the movie was the action. The lightsaber battle on the waves was awesome. What an interesting location for a fight scene on these massive waves that are crashing onto the deck. Probably the most emotional scene in the movie was Leia's death, especially when Chewbacca just like completely loses it. Also when Poe was so upset and just had this shock on his face. The final thing that I enjoyed about this movie was the last scene with Rey. And I get a lot of people are going to say that this is an awful scene. But honestly, if the whole movie had been better, and I think having Rey call herself Skywalker is a nice thing, given that Kylo died in this movie. Getting into the bad. This movie is kind of boring. It's about 2.5 hours long, and there are parts, especially in the first 2/3, that really drag out. There was a lot this movie had to do, like to conclude the original characters, but also given that this is part of a 9-film series, writers for some reason felt obligated to conclude stuff from the original trilogy and the prequels. Maybe not conclude, but reference it, like with the Emperor. So that was a bit disappointing. The thing I thought about this movie that was the worst, his inclusion in it, because he was just so boring throughout the movie. He was not a character. He was just really a reference to Return of the Jedi, Revenge of the Sith. He wasn't really connecting to Force Awakens or Last Jedi or the struggles that Rey and Kylo were going through. And that was the most interesting parts of The Force Awakens and Last Jedi. Rey and Kylo and how they interact and how they contrast each other. You know, Rey comes from nothing literally and she's a good person. Kylo comes from this famous family and he's an awful person. You know, a redemption arc would have been cool to see, and something more fleshed out with them would have been awesome. The moment in the movie where I thought it was going to get good was when Rey first used the Force lightning and they said that she had killed Chewbacca, and that was exciting because I was almost like, oh, okay, she is gonna go bad in this movie. And they fake it out, and you realize that Chewbacca is still alive. Carrie Fisher's part in it, so she obviously died 3 years ago, so they had to use Force Awakens deleted scenes. But they felt a little bit weird, and also her death, like literally when she died, it was a little bit off. I guess we can't credit that to J.J. Abrams or the writers. They were stuck between a rock and a hard place with that character, so it was unfortunate. So Rey in the past has been called a Mary Sue, which I have actually disagreed with, because her character arcs in Force Awakens and Last Jedi were at least interesting to me and different to Luke Skywalker. But in this movie, I absolutely agree with that criticism because Rey really doesn't have a character arc. Given that she's the main character, she's kind of overpowered and she's given the power to heal people, which immediately takes the stakes away because if Rey's in the room, then you know characters aren't gonna die. Also with Rey, her parents being revealed as, I guess, the son of Emperor Palpatine, so that means she's the granddaughter of Emperor Palpatine. That just completely shat on what The Last Jedi set up. And then the final act is just like, it tries to be Endgame with all the ships showing up, but it's just like you don't even care at this point because the movie has just been so boring and you don't care really about any of the characters. So yeah, that's really my thoughts on Rise of Skywalker. Like, I'm not gonna get that angry about it, it's a movie. I wasn't like overly excited about it, but I expected much more. Thank you for watching, make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.